Hello everybody, Terreno here, and today we've got another dev blog, but not the dev blog I was expecting to be covering. Basically yesterday this video, which we will be looking at in a little bit, was released, where basically a drone flies over an airbase and discovers French jets. And so obviously myself and I think plenty of other people assumed the point of the trailer was the announcement of a French jet. And I still believe that will be happening, but the main announcement was actually for drones, which kind of caught me off guard, to be honest. Now, like I say, we're going to be watching the video in a minute just to see if we can glean some information about the drones from there. But we're going to look at the main dev blog first of all, just to see what information we are given. Now, as it says up here, we're going to be getting Scout and Strike drones, and it's going to be coming in the next major update, to be expected. Gives us a little bit of history, says they were in use from the second half of the 20th century, were actually used within World War II, but of course the drones from back then are nothing like the ones of today, and so they have been relegated to basically the higher tiers. So first of all, it talks about Scout drones, and these are going to be available for rank 6 to rank 7 light tank vehicles as a researchable modification. And the commander will basically be able to launch the Scout drone into the sky during the battle, and can switch to the drone whenever needed. And once this drone is launched, it will basically be around for the rest of the battle until destroyed or the tank is destroyed. And interestingly, this isn't just a one-use thing. You can launch it, have it destroyed, but then reload it at captured points. So potentially you could keep using these. I don't know if there will be a hard limit on how many times you can reload it, but it seems like the Scout ones are not going to be armed, so I don't think that's going to be a huge issue, to be honest. And if we go down a little bit further, we now come on to Strike combat drones, and they're only going to be available in realistic battles. Of course, it doesn't mention any restriction for Scout drones, so presumably they will be available in more game modes. And this is not going to be a modification for a vehicle, but is going to depend on the amount of respawn points you have. So presumably this will either be researchable within the tech tree, or it will just be available once you get to a certain rank, like with the nuclear bombers. And so once you get a certain amount of points, you will just be able to spawn in a drone instead of one of your usual vehicles. And the three drones we're going to be getting are the Orion for the Soviet Union / Russia, the Wing Loon 1 for China, and what appears to be the bog standard generic one is the MQ-1 for the USA and all other game nations. And of course the Strike UAV, unlike the Scout one, does carry anti-tank guided missiles, so as it says here, can be used against entrenched or camping opponents. And I'm not sure why this really needs to be stated, but basically UAVs will basically act like aircraft. They will have full physics parameters, damage models, and flight models, which I'd be very surprised if they were added without all of that, to be honest. And again, I don't know why this needs to be confirmed, but can be shot down with both guns and missiles. We'll be able to lock onto them with radars. We'll fly and maneuver according to real life models. Again, I feel like that's just a given when an aircraft is added into War Thunder. And again, incoming damage affects the flight model as well. Again, I'm not sure why this needs to be stated. Now, the Scout and Strike drones both have a targeting camera, to be expected, and you'll be able to view an area of interest from a long distance. So potentially you can just avoid getting shot down by going through a long distance, high altitude, and then using the camera to zoom in from a long distance. And the targeting station is activated by the camera view toggle button, which for most people is going to be V. Now, interestingly, it says some drones available for rank 7 vehicles are also equipped with thermal imaging equipment, which implies that some before that are not going to have it. So presumably we're going to have more drones than just these 3 Strike ones, because otherwise why would they not have thermal imaging equipment? Unless they're just going to use box standard Scout drones and just disable thermal imaging below a certain rank. And of course we've also got these 3 pictures. So what can we tell from the video? Now I'm going to just play it once without any commentary, just for those who haven't seen the trailer, and then we'll have a little look.
Delta, UAV operator online. Scanning enemy for activity. Delta, I see a group of jets over here. We're gonna try to get a closer look at it. It looks like French aircraft. Delta, do you copy that?
So that was the trailer. I'm just going to watch it again without the dialogue and music and etc. Now here's the camera, and it does show some distortion, but I believe that's just been edited in post recording just to try and, as part of the theme of the trailer. But we can get some information about the drone used. Now we can see it's at 92% thrust, and it is travelling at a speed of about, I think it's 218 kilometers an hour, so about 210, 220, and it's at an altitude of about 2,800 meters. And interestingly enough, it has 2 AGM missiles. So this isn't one of the scout drones being used here. So we go on a little bit further, and its speed has slowed down to about 200 kilometers, but it is still around 2,800 meters, and that is the airfield with the camera fairly zoomed out. So 2,800 meters, maybe 5 kilometers horizontal distance. I'd say that airfield is around 7-8 kilometers away, possibly more, possibly less. And there it is zoomed in. And while that isn't a great amount of detail, that is more than adequate for spotting tanks and other armoured vehicles. Now, it does actually cut a little bit. I'll slow it down a little bit. 2,800 metres, and then it goes to about 1,600, and we're at 174 kilometres an hour now. So the distance we're viewing it from is a lot different from here, at least 1,000 kilometres vertical difference. And it's changed position again because it's now 1,700 metres. And it must be it's a lot closer now, just from the angle you can tell there. But that is pretty good quality for that camera. So you can't really tell much from the trailer, but we get a little bit of information on, what sort of ranges you can still be viewing the battlefield. We don't get any ranges for the missiles, unfortunately. Now, I would think most AGM missiles have a range of at least 10 kilometers. So, yeah, if my guess of about 8 kilometers or so is correct, that would be well within range of missiles. So this would be fairly safe from self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. Missiles, on the other hand, would be a little bit different. And as you can see, it's not the highest altitude drone in the world being used there. And it's even at 100% thrust, it's only making about 220 kilometers an hour while staying about level flight. So against self-propelled anti-aircraft missiles and even just other aircraft, these are going to be fairly easy to deal with. So I am glad drones are being added to the game. I don't think they're going to be major game changers. I think if they catch an enemy off guard, or an enemy that hasn't got any anti-aircraft missiles or other planes already in the air, they could be quite lethal. In a contested airspace, I don't think they're going to last very long. Yeah, basically, if you skimp on your anti-aircraft defences, you are going to have a very bad time, and anyone who puts a bit of effort into it will presumably be able to deal with these drones very easily. So yeah, I'd be interested to see how these play out in the dev server and the live server when they're introduced. And I'd like to hear in the comments what your views are about drones being added to War Thunder. Is this a good change or a bad change? Is it going to have much of an effect on the game? Like I said, I'd like to hear your views in the comments below. Anyway, that's it for this devlog. I've been Terreno, and I'll see you next time.